Hi, I'm Carly Clark and I'm the owner of Splitters Farm. Splitters is a 160-acre property about 10 minutes north of Bundaberg. We purchased it in 2017. Really, we just wanted a bit of land to raise some cattle on and raise our kids. We've got 5 kids between us. And yeah, we just wanted to give them the opportunity to grow up on rural property like we both did when we were kids, and all the benefits that brings. Pretty soon after we purchased the property, we started taking rescue animals in. Bundaberg's pretty much been in drought for a few years now, and a lot of farmers had to come off the land and couldn't afford to keep their livestock fed. So we started taking animals in mainly because of drought. These days they come to us for any number of reasons. It's neglect and abuse, council confiscations. We've even had women dropping animals off on their way out of town because they're fleeing domestic violence. So it doesn't matter what the reasons are. We started taking them in a few years ago. So pre-COVID, we were working full-time, running weekend tours, looking to expand the property into accommodation. I had just taken a really flexible job 2 weeks prior to COVID that was going to allow me to be on the farm and work a bit more from home so we could get the project up and running. We had just applied for our bank loan to the bank, and then all of a sudden COVID hit. So we effectively pivoted for a while to stay open for our weekend tours, and then obviously, like every other tourism business, that ended as well. During COVID, I like to say we struggled a bit mentally. We had all these goals and all these long-term plans that we were really working fairly ambitiously to achieve, and all of a sudden that just all came crashing down. I guess for us, the bank then just said no. Well, they didn't say no, they said not now with regards to the loan, and we kind of took COVID as an opportunity to do what we could around the farm. I effectively lost the job that I had just received that was going to create a more flexible environment for me to work in. And I guess effectively we really just had to look at our life and reprioritise our plans moving forward. During COVID, we threw ourselves into the farm full-time. We raised money initially to support the animals, because the hardest thing for us was we didn't want to have to sell any animals that had been entrusted to us. So we raised money through Facebook. We reached out to people every day through Facebook Lives so that people could actually connect with us and vice versa. It was probably the only time we would have condoned people being on screens and technology to connect, which changed the whole model of how we actually see screens. We were always trying to get kids to get their hands dirty and get off screens, and then this was like the one exception. So we increased our social media following during COVID something like 700 or 800%. It was incredible. People were really looking for an outlet, and we connected with people through these farm tours we were running each day. So we would candle eggs one day, or we would do a tour and explain the benefits of having guinea fowl as natural pest controllers, or we would brush the horses and talk about the stories of the animals that we've taken in. So then post-COVID, we made the decision not to go back and kill ourselves working full-time and trying to run the farm on weekends. So we're now open 7 days a week. Most of our tours are self-guided, so it allows people to, at their own pace, tour the farm and discover the benefits of being out here in fresh open air and fresh open spaces. And we opened with just the biggest supportive following that we could have ever imagined. What does the future hold for Splitters? Well, we're in the process of going for eco certification. We really want to be the first tourism park that runs completely off-grid. It's a massive thing for us. We really want to be sustainable and show how an agribusiness can work in harmony with its natural environment. As far as the expansion of Splitters Farm goes, we, off the back of COVID, had such a successful following that we were able to go back to the bank, hand on heart, and say, look, this model is going to work. So we have been successful in securing bank funding and a grant to progress our accommodation side of things. We have just launched this week our 5-star offering, 8 amazing deluxe safari tents, which we are so very proud of. We are in the process of building a camp kitchen, And look, as far as down the track goes, we would love to build an on-site cafe. We've got plans for a produce store, a conference facility, and we really are looking at options to become a dual attraction and maybe couple with some kind of culinary and beverage experience. So lots of big plans for Splitters. All of the animals will take along for the ride, and yeah, stay tuned.
Thanks for the fantastic video, Carly. It's really great to be able to just get a bit of an overview of that whole story. My first question to you might have been, did you write up plans with a social media process or work with tourism agencies to build up your tactics? That might have been my question if I knew that you were a beginner marketer. But as you're a superstar, I imagine that there might just be some method behind your approach. So maybe if you could just tell us a little bit about how you, well, go back and take us through this journey, and particularly how you decided to use your social media approach that you did.
Sure. So I guess when we were looking at, I should say thank you very much for having me, first of all, and thank you everyone for dialing in. I guess, yeah, I do have a background in digital media across a variety of industries, and, you know, the methodology remains the same. But I guess when we were starting up, you know, we had this 160-acre farm. We wanted to turn into a farm stay. You've got to have a fairly good business case to do that. So we did, with the digital grant that came out a few years ago, the $10,000, we used that to actually do a lot of customer journey mapping and working out what audiences we could attract through diversity of product. So we did that. We used that $10,000 to do a lot of that work. One, to establish a really good and solid marketing plan, an overarching marketing plan, but also to understand what our key messages and brand messages were going to be to particular audiences. I think with digital, we have a real opportunity to really target into certain audiences rather than kind of just that shotgun approach. So, you know, we have that real opportunity to drill down and talk to audiences. During COVID, I think we pivoted that much. We were just reacting to whatever was happening. I think a lot of people were just getting their ducks in a row in terms of what they could do, what they couldn't do, how they were remaining open, how they were being safe, how they could protect their staff and customers. That I think we just kind of winged it for a lot of it, and there was nothing wrong with that. I think we all needed to be very agile and very flexible during that period. Off the back of that, we have revisited our overarching marketing plan, and we still do a lot of organic Facebook and a lot of, you know, we still have a lot of those touch points. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. So, I mean, tell us about your incredible Facebook Live project, really. So I mean, where did you start? How many, you obviously didn't have as many followers at the start. And what do you think were the key drivers that actually brought so many people in and allowed you to increase your market, your growth so much in such a short period of time?
I think for us, you know, when COVID first hit and we were going to be shut, we knew it was coming. We were all panicking. We were like, oh, what are we going to do? Stay open? How are we going to make money? How are we going to, you know, effectively save the farm? I think my first post on Instagram was me sitting in the car with my 8-year-old eating ice cream because I just lost my job. And it was kind of like, hey, you know, if you've got no job and you don't know what's coming next, just go out there and eat ice cream. But I think I really sat down and had to get my head straight. I think a lot of people during that stage had a like cotton wool in their head. They didn't know what to do first. For us, it was about family. It was about saving the animals. We didn't want to part with any of the animals we'd taken in because that was not their owners' expectations when they were given to us, that we were just going to go and sell or give away their animals. So, you know, a lot of people come back and visit their animals here, and we wanted to maintain that. But it was quite obvious that we were not going to be able to, I guess, make money off tours in a live sense because there was so much content out there. So we basically just said, well, what's the second most important thing? And that was the support of the local community, followers, getting followers and getting loyal followers. And we started doing Facebook Lives, and the very first Facebook Live we did, I think, was very much me just walking them around the farm, doing what I normally do, just showing people guinea fowls sitting on nests. And I think we talked about COVID, and we talked about how people are now homeschooling, and hey, this was their opportunity at 10 o'clock each day to connect with us, see me pulling my hair out, knowing that they weren't alone because they were probably at home doing exactly the same thing. I think in one of my lives, my 2-year-old peed his pants in the orchard, and my 8-year-old was screaming. And, you know, there was a lot of that. Do I post that or do I not post that? And I think it was all about being real, being authentic, and that sense of connection, no matter how distant everyone seemed during that period.
Yeah, I think we've talked a lot about this yesterday, but we're going to talk a lot about it today, how important the message of being authentic and focusing locally is an important one at this time of so many lockdowns and things. As markets come back, that might be slightly different. The third thing that I think I really noticed looking back over your Facebook feeds and getting an idea of where you've come from is your persistence. And what really hit me about that was that I could see the number of viewers that you'd had on different days, and nothing put you off. You weren't deterred on the days when you had really small viewers. And consequently, because of that persistence, it just kept growing, and it seemed to really pay off. Would you say that that was a big part of how you coped as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, mentally, we all took a really big hit. And when you don't have visitors on your farm or at your attraction, when you're used to greeting people through those gates every day, what do you do? And having that set itinerary, knowing that even though people weren't maybe connecting at 10 o'clock, but they would go back and rewatch it, was definitely important. And I think making sure that we, downloaded those episodes and then put them on YouTube as well, having that multi-platform, so people could, because not all people are watching Facebook and vice versa. So making sure that there's multiple avenues for people to view that content was definitely important as well.
And the final question I'd ask for the moment, obviously we might get to more questions later on, is in terms of, then you lost the support of the bank initially, but then you managed to bring them back on board. Do you think that having a social media presence actually helped with that argument to bring the bank back on board and continue expanding?
Absolutely, but for us, I think the bank were just kind of like, no, we're putting this on hold. This project, especially, I mean, the tourism, debatably took the worst hit of any other industry during COVID, but the bank kind of said, yeah, not now. For us, though, it allowed us to really drill down into and be an influencer over, I would say a lot of grants came out. People were kind of throwing money around at the end. We're not through COVID, but towards, how do we support industry and all that sort of thing. And we were very vocal in saying we were a shovel-ready project. A lot of grants come out that really, would you spend the money if it was your own money? And that question comes up a lot. We were, we needed CapEx money. We needed CapEx dollars to fund our project, to get it to that next stage, so we effectively could put, bums in jobs. And that's what we did. And for us, having a great social media following, having amazing local support and community support through digital, definitely assisted us in proving our case that we were a project worth funding, both through the bank and through, state and federal government. So it was great.
Miss Fabie Wintle, Fabie, as she's known, is a noted digital strategist who empowers business owners and their staff to make the most of internet technology. She's an advocate for digital self-sufficiency, and her hands-on approach has given the tools and knowledge to thousands of small and large operators to excel in the tourism industry. She's also the co-founder of Tourism Tribe, which is an online community of 5,000 businesses. Because Tourism Tribe works with such a variety of MSMEs and also in conjunction with larger tourism bodies, I suppose as the turndown from COVID-19 persisted, Fabie, did you see many examples of remotely located micro businesses attempting to pivot during 2020?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me, and hi everyone. So what we've seen at the very start of COVID is suddenly, the Australian businesses we work with, because being in Australia, suddenly had time. That there was, obviously there's all the refunds and getting organised, but after that there was time to think and not the destruction of the customers, which is, for us, it's just the perfect situation because we can really hone in on these skills that generally have been put at the very bottom of the to-do list, because of a lot of the operators we work with are the small ones who feel they're not tech savvy to make the right tech decisions. But what we constantly try and remind these businesses is technology is just a tool. You got used to the telephone when it came out. But what is really important, and that's what Carly demonstrated, is that she had really clear business objectives. And then she used the appropriate technology. And obviously with the experience that you have with digital, it would have been easier, but she used the right technology to deliver her message. And what we've seen is that the successful businesses have really not let go of digital and said, all right, I'm going to focus right there and then. And we ran pretty much, training programs overnight from when COVID shutdown was announced. And we saw the operators were like, wow, now I've actually got time to concentrate and make this happen, because it doesn't just happen overnight. And you can't suddenly learn how to manage your website or SEO or Facebook in 2 hours. You've really got to set some time to let it sink in. And if you've got that fear of technology, it makes it really harder. So the businesses that have done really well are the ones that realize this technology thing is just a tool. I've got my personas, I know my market, but I know that if I want to be really efficient in this new world and be able to pivot, I need to learn how to use these tools. Because paying someone else, like I've done until now, and putting like my website just like right there on the side and on in the heart of my business is not possible anymore. And we've seen time and time again, up till last week, talking to businesses that like, oh no, I pay someone for SEO, to suddenly their website crashed. They don't know what's happened. Oh, I'll pay them for backup. Oh, Fabie, I've realized I paid them for backups, but nothing's happened in the last year. I don't have any backup. I can't afford to run business like this anymore. And the other thing that Carly mentioned as well that I love hearing is she's done the Facebook Lives, but she's downloaded the videos and also put them on YouTube. And you really can't not see YouTube or Facebook or platforms. You can't see them as your own platforms. You've got to make sure that everything is across different channels, and your website is the only digital asset that you own. So having a good understanding of how that website works, how to be able to update itself, to update it, add new elements, add YouTube videos. These are the businesses that have done that have survived, and being able to pivot really quickly and launch new programs without thinking, oh, well, I'd like to do it, but I don't know how to update and a new tool on my website, So these tools need to be like bread and butter. And once you've taken the time to be able to work with these tools, everything else is just as easy as it would be.
I think this is one of the key things about digitalisation, and I will keep coming back to this over these few days, is that it actually is changing the way that all businesses work. And because of the way the tools become easier to use or more accessible or more eponymous and needing to be used, people really do start to learn how to use them because they need to. And in fact, I went out to one of your clients. This is, exactly all the things that you've just been talking about are really well highlighted. So we went across to Serena Eldridge from Grampians Tourism in Northwest Victoria, Australia. They called in Tourism Tribe to help support their MSEs. So we'll have a look at this interview that I conducted with her last week to examine her role in supporting and developing the tourism partnerships across 4 local government partners, 150 plus tourism industry members, organisation and key tourism marketing bodies to enhance and diversify the visitor experience within the Grampians region.
A lot of people think about the Grampians and they think about the national park, but realistically the tourism region is far broader than that. So it takes in 4 local government areas in Western Victoria, and then down the other way, you know, to Hamilton. So you're getting close to the South Australian border as well. So when you look at that sort of centre patch that we look after, it's a huge area. We're a pretty small team, 10 staff total, and only 2 of us are full-time. A lot of tourism businesses, most of them would be, I would say, you know, sort of small mum and dad or family businesses, and they can be across all sorts of sectors. So there's a lot of accommodation, retail. It's a really broad product offering, but the national park, the Grampians National Park, would really be the centrepiece of that. And we do, in our messaging, we highlight, you know, wide open spaces and the natural attractions of the area as the main draw card to get people to the Grampians. Then, of course, COVID. Bang, work from home. Operators that started to email us going, hey, about that post you put up, I've had a cancellation. And then it was just this flood of messages saying, hey, we've got everyone's cancelling. Actually, we did probably underestimate the COVID situation. I think we really just went into a bit of shock at that time. We, as an industry body, we started just communicating out what our operators had to do, and we used, like, that was all digital, but it had to be digital. So we had to make sure that we were using, you know, EDM, we were using social media, we were using our website to then pull in all the relevant information, because I think, you know, for tourism operators, there was information coming from everywhere. And depending on what sector of the industry you're involved in, whether it's hospitality or accommodation or retail or whatever it might be, there was stuff coming from everywhere, and we really had to consolidate that for our operators. But once everyone knew where they stood and everything was locked down, then we went out to them and said, okay, what is this situation highlighting for you in terms of gaps in your professional development or gaps in your understanding of, you know, things that you need to do better, basically. What came back from most of the operators that responded was digital marketing. And we qualified that in the questions that we asked. We're saying when we say digital marketing, we're not just talking about setting up a Facebook page. Do you understand Google Analytics? Have you even claimed your Google My Business? You know, really simple stuff that if you're a larger organisation and you've got a digital marketing person set aside, you know, to do this full time, easy for you. But as I say, a lot of these are mum and dad operators who may have even bought an accommodation property as a pre-retirement plan. They had no idea on some of this. So reputation management, well, a lot of people roll their eyes when you talk about that, but some of them had never even heard that terminology. So search engine optimization, you know, all those things. So that was a real highlight for us. And some of them don't have online booking. You know, it's call me to make a booking. We've got a lot of little boutique wineries, and they probably were not set up as well as they would have liked for e-commerce to start selling products that way. And some of those were even just tickets. Hey, buy a ticket now for Grampians helicopters and then use that when you can come back out into the regions. We certainly saw a lot of help out of Victorian Tourism Industry Council. We saw a lot of information coming from them about opportunities for operators. Some of the local government partners, as I said, either ran Zoom workshops or offered rebates or offered assistance in setting up websites, because believe it or not, some of our operators, little operators, but some of them didn't even have a well-working website. COVID just highlighted how important that was, because no matter how much we might say to people, having an Australian Tourism Data Warehouse listing is so important. Having an operational website is really important. Making sure it's mobile friendly is really important. COVID, all of a sudden they're like, oh, I understand now. I see what you're saying. Because if you've got people locked down at home and they're looking for a bit of travel inspiration, you know, what do you offer? During COVID, there was a lot of online resources, and sometimes it was death by Zoom. We certainly made people aware of opportunities for training. But what we did do to deliver something to operators across the 4 local government areas. We said, okay, here is an opportunity. We can see that you're struggling with this. So we called in the team at Tourism Tribe and said, this is what we want to deliver. And we want it to be far more than a social media thing. We want it to cover off analytics, reputation management. And we needed it to be, because they're small business operators, these are the guys who are booking people in. These are the guys who are doing all of it. They're cleaning the rooms, they're doing the maintenance. You can't have them sit in front of a computer for a whole day to do this. You know, to get time out of their business is really hard. So it needed to be in little chunks that they had the time to do it, but they could also digest it. We needed to build their confidence, because I think that's a real issue here. A lot of these people are like, oh, I don't want to touch my website. I don't know anything about it. So we had to give them confidence to use the tool, saying you can't really break it, and educate them in saying it doesn't mean that you've got to sit in front of your computer all day, every day, responding to these things. Digital technology can actually make life a little bit easier. You know, if not all your bookings are coming via the phone, that might actually be a good thing, because you've got a site minder that will manage your bookings and your room allocations and so forth. So we had a couple of operators actually say to us, I've tried, you know, in week 1, they're like, oh, I tried some of those things and the result really was pretty well instantaneous. They said to us, I can see that it's better already, you know, and it was just small things. I think there are some positives out of it. You know, people, when I go around now visiting operators, people are far more willing to try something new. They just had a go. Like, they just like, well, let's try it and see how it works. So they've been dabbling in videos on their Facebook Live and things that they just would never have done, or thought that they needed a professional to come in and do. You know, it's highlighting, particularly around some of that social media, it's about the authenticity. You are the face of this business. The business is about you. Now, that property can be distributed by an operator in India or in China or the UK. They can participate in these distribution models that previously they've not had access to. Digitisation of the tourism industry has just potentially made every operator a global operator. And again, COVID just highlights that even more, because they can see how that impacts their business. So I think that's a really interesting development. Out in our area is, believe it or not, reliable internet. That is a real barrier. So that provides challenges of its own, you know. So when you start talking to people, trying to encourage them to up their digital skill, some of them have actually said to me, Serena, what is the point of that? I can't even get reliable internet, so why do I need to worry about it? I think the biggest barriers are resources, as we've talked about, you know, time, staff, and financial resources. Staff is a big one, you know, for them in terms of resources. And if they don't feel that they have time to do this, then finding someone in their team that will. Is there a member of your team that you could get to do this? There may be someone there, someone younger, who would love to do your Facebook page and love to do your Instagram feed. I think if you ask to them, they would say, oh, no, we're okay with that. We change our password. Or having said that, they probably don't change their passwords. They've probably got the same password for every account. I think they would be very conscious of it in terms of their, say, financial, you know, banking, that kind of thing, online banking. They'd be very aware of it there. But I think, you know, in someone hacking, say, their social media or that sort of thing, no. I think a lot of them are probably not as familiar or aware on how to protect probably their online, particularly around reputation and bookings, that kind of thing. I had one operator, they purchased the business and someone else was running the Google My Business for the previous owners, and that was not sort of handed over to the new owners. So all of a sudden they find that their online Google My Business listing is in the hands of somebody else. Now, they didn't know who that was until I get this thing saying, hey, you've not paid us for 2 years, you need to pay us this amount. And they're like, well, no, actually, we can do that ourselves. And then all of a sudden, the whole thing falls in a heap. The person who was running the Google My Business page took it down, removed all the information. And then all of a sudden your business is showing up on Google as permanently closed. So if you're a business and you're running Instagram, Facebook, Google AdWords, all those things, it's a whole audit that's a whole other part of the business. It's not now just a case of buying the 8 rooms and people drive in and out and you clean the rooms. It's all this other intangible stuff that goes with it. And how do I get access to that? I think that's probably the big one, you know, particularly when you see businesses selling all those parts of your digital footprint that you need to take in as part of that business sale, and then they don't know where to go with that. I still have operators emailing me, Serena, is this a phishing email? Is this a scam? You know, so if some of them struggle to identify what is a legitimate booking versus phishing emails, you know, that is a challenge in itself. But really, I don't think it comes back to the technology so much. It comes back to their confidence and the resources they have to educate themselves about how they could make life easier for themselves. What we don't have, and I speak from a regional tourism board point of view at this point, is the resources to do it ourselves. So 2 people to cover that area, we can't physically get out and do this for all these operators. Our primary role, most people would say, is destination marketing. So our role really is there to drive people to the region. I think it's a critical role of regional tourism boards to support industry development. Without developing industry and new product, you don't have anything to market. So the pilot that we ran with Tourism Tribe for those 20 operators has gone over so well. And when I've rung to speak to them, they're like, oh, it was great. These are just the kinds of things that I needed to know. It's made a real difference to the business. Now, I'd love to do that over and over again until we got all our operators on that sort of level playing field, because, you know, rising tide lifts all boats. If everyone is learning and it lifts the whole experience for visitors, then everyone wins. You know, everyone wins right across the region. So it's not just about one town here or there or one operator here or there. The whole lot benefit. We also need funds to help us pay to bring the experts in to deliver these kinds of projects. They're the 2 biggies from our point of view. We're seeing a lot more work with, you know, itinerary planning. We're starting to see a lot more things, you know, digital itinerary planning, geolocated podcasts, the tools digitally to experience a region, but it still encourage them to come out and experience that. Those are the things that I think are going to be game changers for tourism. I think digital has made such a huge change. The way that we do business now is so dramatically different. The basics are still the same. We're still there because we want to give people great experiences and talk about all the great things there are to do wherever you might be in the world. In terms of international markets, we're still seeing interest, you know, internationally from people who, when the borders open, want to come visit. You know, we're still doing a lot of stuff via Zoom, you know, training for inbound tour operators and agents, you know, in India and China and all over the world, really. So life will get easier once those borders reopen, but there's still a long way to go yet. Long way to go. Yeah.
So there's an awful lot of information in that one video. I do apologise. That's what happens when you interview someone for an hour and chop it down to 10 minutes. Fabie, I mean, you know, Serena touched on a whole bunch of things that you had just been talking about. You know, this concept of how do we get small businesses to understand the business ramifications of not knowing who's in charge of their platform, their Google My Business and so on. From your experience out there, are you seeing a large change in the way, similar to Serena described it, that people are starting to go, oh, we can make small steps and it makes a difference?
Yeah, I'd just like to take it back a notch before answering your question, Stephen. But I want to say the real reason that this program that we ran for Grampians, or the real reason that regions get successful with using digital, is because of people like Serena. And I've been traveling around the Asia Pacific since 2005, giving training, workshops, whether it's workshops or Zoom, it's no different. There need to be someone in region, a trusted advisor, to help small businesses get on with business. And businesses now turn digital, and Serena is that person. I can't count on my one hand the number of regional coordinators like Serena that understands how to fix a Google My Business listing, that let alone take interest in what SEO is, or how to talk to Google My Business, or get set up on Facebook and save password management. This is why it's working. It's because she understands it, and she's there. She is the trusted advisor that these people, they might know Fabie because I've run the course, but they know Serena is always going to be there for them, and is a local, and that's what made it work. And she touches well on what I call Rio in the concrete, and you can probably tell I'm building a house, and we've only got 5 acres, not 160 like Carly, but the week one that we do in our training program, the one we ran with Grampians, is all about smart tools for your business, about safe password management, about phishing, about organizing your files and logos in Dropbox. How many times do I go and train a business and ask them for their logo, and so to start searching on their Mac for the word logo, I'm like, don't you have a Dropbox folder? So bottom of the pyramid stuff like this is so important to get right. And it's not really digital. It's just basic business skills. And as Serena talks about mum and dad operators, it just happens that in our industry, this is the people that have got the great ideas, but they might be lacking those basic business skills. So what really came out of the success of that is Serena being there around them, helping them get the skills, really nurture them and give them confidence. You can train them all you want, but if they haven't got that confidence that they can do it, and especially during COVID, it's going to be very difficult. In terms of how to run the programs and what's the best way to get operators to get to the level that the Grampians did for other people that are helping operators in the room, I think it's really important to acknowledge that the people that you work with, they receive information differently. Like, I'm the tech geek. I learn tools so quickly, but I know that my target market doesn't. And being able to provide them with ways of training that really suits the way their brain works is what's going to make it happen. So as much as I'd like to teach people about everything about SEO in a workshop, I have to find different ways, and it makes it a little bit more tricky to do it when you do it in a whole digital environment and you can't be sitting next to that person. But what we did with Grampians, so we really found lots of different tools. For example, we ran health checks. So people received a report, and a lot of people that are kind of old school like to print the report and go to the next step like that. We also had self-paced session. We were live every week. They had, one-on-one coaching sessions. And we've designed a system that allows small businesses to work with one another and motivate each other. And the way we work things is with businesses all around the world, they can connect fortnightly and see that they're not alone having the same problem with their Facebook being hacked, or, what's a phishing email? And that's another way that we found works really well. And if you think about it, we were always doing that digitally before COVID, but now businesses are more ready to use Zoom. Like, we don't get asked anymore how to connect on Zoom. They're ready to find this new way of learning. However, we have to find the right middle by understanding that they like networking functions, they like talking to one another. That's why we have to provide an environment that's suited. So hopefully I've answered your question. I might have digressed a bit.
Yeah, no, look, I think one of the things that becomes really clear to see is that the way that we transform MSMEs is by transforming the support services around them. And I think the larger organisations, the support organisations like Tourism Tribe and so on, play a massive part in this. I'd like to throw back to you, Carly, the question of how closely did you work with Bundaberg Tourism, which is the regional tourism operator in your area? Is that something that was an important relationship as well?
Yeah, definitely. And I guess I board of Bundaberg Tourism as well, so that does help. So having the behind the scenes idea of how we were supporting local tourism operators during COVID, not just in understanding what their requirements were, but also I think Bundaberg Tourism has always been hugely supportive in running workshops to Instagram and Facebook, and really giving small to medium business owners an opportunity to see what they can manage themselves and what they can outsource. And where it has been able to be outsourced, Bundaberg Tourism are able to provide a lot of trusted third parties to do that, which is great. I think, though, it's very easy to handball digital aspects of your, of what you do. However, I think it's still really important for the people at the core of the business to be capturing content. So regardless of whether someone is still managing a YouTube channel or managing a Facebook channel and putting posts up on their behalf, somebody still needs to be on the ground capturing when it happens, what happens, and that authenticity. And I think sometimes that's what gets lost with outsourcing. And you do have those issues where, someone is running a My Google business page for someone that's no longer there. So, but I think if there is that fine line where, manage what you can, don't be afraid, build your skills, get that confidence. Don't be afraid to outsource, but you still need to be so involved with capturing even the initial raw content for someone else to turn into, a pearl. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the things that research is telling us that one of the effects of COVID is that we've switched from just being a general destination marketing to being far more granular. And this is something that I say is coming up more often in the whole digital disruption that's going on across the board in a whole range of different communities and jobs. And what I mean by this is that it's not just good enough now to bring people to your region. Individual MSMEs are needing to, find the authentic product in their little area and pull people from the region to their services. And I think, speaking to Ali Tonkin from Bundaberg Tourism yesterday, we saw some great examples of they build fantastic central resource and they work off everything that they can collect. But fundamentally, as you said, it's up to the local operator to make sure that what's coming out from them is really authentic and powerful stuff that can, reach out.
Definitely. I think authentic, as well as there's a lot to do with, I think everyone wants to know that when they visit a region that they visited like a hidden gem. So that messaging in essence is something you've got to be really strategic about in getting out to those customers. We want people to go, oh, I found out about it through someone else, not because I saw it on, we do have billboards and we've got all those different levels of traditional marketing that we push out on, but you still want people to feel like they discovered something that not many other people have. So it's definitely a strategy of ours. And yeah, it's worked, a lot of time and time again.
Yeah. So thanks for that. I'd like to invite Dr. Madelene Blaer to come and join us now from Monash University. This is now going to take the journey up, slightly larger size organisation, but still an NGO that's working to build its own reputation and marketplace. And this is for Live Penguin TV social media. So I'll throw it to you, Madelene, if you could take us through the scenario of what went on over COVID during that time for you.
Thanks so much, Stephen. Thank you, everyone, for having me. My name's Dr. Madelene Blaer, and as Stephen kindly noted, I'm from the Graduate Tourism Program at Monash University, where I look after the digital tourism and research units for our Master of Sustainable Tourism Management students. My own research, though, addresses how digitalisation in tourism and travel can lead to sustainable practices and outcomes. And this links in really well with the themes of this symposium. So I'm very happy to be here. So today I'm going to share some of the findings from a recent research project of mine with Phillip Island Nature Parks. And to provide a very brief background, Phillip Island Nature Parks is a not-for-profit harnessing the tourism industry for their research, education and conservation programs. and they're located about 90 minutes drive from Melbourne. And the Penguin Parade is one of their key tourism offerings, where each night at sunset, visitors can watch hundreds, sometimes thousands of these little penguins swim in and return to their burrows in the sand dunes. So all of this, of course, had to temporarily close during the lockdowns that we had in 2020. But management responded with an innovative initiative, and that was to live stream it. And I partnered with them to analyse the impact, because whilst we know from previous studies that online experiences can reinforce travel motivation, there's really a lack of research that examines the use of live webcams in this regard, and especially so in the context of an unprecedented global pandemic. And place-based live webcams really took off in popularity last year, but live Penguin TV was different in a number of ways. Firstly, it was scheduled to air nightly at sundown rather than being available 24/7. There were park ranger hosts that provided live expert commentary, and they had 2 cameras, so they could provide a range of angles that were controlled by the hosts, who could respond and zoom in on live events. And lastly, importantly, online audiences could also ask questions and interact with hosts and other viewers via social media chat functions on Facebook and YouTube, where it was streamed. Great efforts were really put into promoting the campaign in the lead up, with a number of media outlets, including Time Out. They had a feature article, and with interviews with ABC. They also generated earned media, and you can see an example here on my slides with the live rescue of one of the little penguins. It was also shared on the State Premier's Facebook page and highlighted in Tourism Australia's newsletter. So it received some incredible coverage. Phillip Island Nature Parks provided me with their social media data, and my analysis showed that 7.4 million unique users across 119 countries were reached. But it was really the level of engagement that struck me, because not only was Live Penguin TV being displayed on millions of screens, but people were interacting with it. They were liking, sharing, commenting, and clicking on the posts. The top performing post was on launch night, with more than 771,000 viewers tuning in. Nightly viewership numbers then averaged out to around 25,000, which is a significant sustained engagement over the 112 days that it was aired. There were also thousands of comments and questions that were posted every night, about 1,200 on average, but up to 5,000 on the popular nights. Some viewers were asking questions multiple times, and this may have been because their post was lost in the feed and perhaps unanswered by the hosts. And other viewers would then become frustrated and report and block those viewers that were posting repeatedly, some of which may have just been, excited children eager to ask questions. So a lesson here is that either a very high level of chat moderation is required to manage viewers' chat experience, or very clear instructions as to where and how to submit questions so that this can be managed. I developed an online survey that we shared on their website and social media platforms, and we received 590 usable responses, with about a 60-30-10 split with intrastate, interstate and international viewers. And interestingly, even with a strong public relations campaign and the news about the launch being shared very widely on more traditional media channels, the survey showed that by far the most common information source leading viewers to Live Penguin TV was their Facebook account. So this really goes to show the reach and the power of social media. The findings show as well that Live Penguin TV really became a ritual for people. Around 165 respondents reported watching on a nightly basis, and another 220 people watched at least once weekly, although half of this group were watching 4 to 6 times per week. Almost half watched by themselves, and then the other half were watching with family, which really relates to most of the respondents being in lockdown with their household. The top reasons for watching related to the conservation of wildlife and the natural world, education about it, and feeling connected. And these reasons were selected over being entertained and simply looking for something to do whilst in lockdown. From a tourism management perspective, the findings show that Live Penguin TV positively influenced travel motivation and actual visitation to the Penguin Parade, as well as their other smaller sites, including their Koala Conservation Centre and Churchill Island Heritage Farm. Around a quarter reported that they had visited or had booked to visit Phillip Island, and another 66% said that they were likely to do so. Intention to travel interstate to Victoria and internationally to Australia were influenced too, with the majority of viewers from other states and countries supporting this. And the conservation messages were received very positive as well, with 99% agreeing with this. In part, I think that this is what led to the other types of actions that were taken as a result of watching Live Penguin TV, such as recommending visiting to others, adopting a penguin, and donating to the Penguin Foundation, as well as purchasing from Phillip Island Nature Park's online store. "405 respondents provided extended comments, which revealed a number of interesting insights. Viewers highly valued the regular park ranger hosts. They almost became like celebrities, and viewers felt like they were close friends, reporting wanting to visit the parade in order to meet them. Another major theme was that Live Penguin TV helped viewers to cope with lockdown and its isolation, especially for those suffering from extreme loneliness, deep depression and anxiety during this time. And Live Penguin TV generated a sense of community with other viewers and a sense of connection to the outside world, especially nature, as well as a reminiscence of pre-COVID times with people reflecting on their past travels. Viewers collectively referred to themselves as Waddle Watchers, and after the final nightly live stream aired, they established a private Facebook group for interested viewers to keep in touch. And you can see the image of that here with Waddle Watchers Anonymous. So I'll summarise my short talk here just in a couple of sentences. I think the key ingredients leading to Live Penguin TV's success was that Phillip Island Nature Parks backed their innovation with available resources. It was then picked up by the media worldwide because it was a good news story during this dark time. And then the interactive element of the webcam generated an online community, which really maintained the momentum and has now translated into actual and intended visitation, which will really help with the post-COVID recovery for Phillip Island. So that's it from me. Thank you all very much for your attention, and I look forward to answering some questions at the end of this session. If there are further questions, please do feel free to email me and get in touch that way as well.
I might just throw a question to you. One is, the outcomes that you were showing us seem to involve a lot of different partners and potentially wider stakeholders. I mean, you weren't just building Phillip Island Nature Park's reputation, you were building other aspects of regional parks and interest and things. I suppose what I'm asking is, were Phillip Island Nature Parks able to leverage any of this to build new partnerships that might help them in the future?
Yeah, that very much is part of the intention, and I think it's what we'll be seeing going forward, with collaboration just being such an important part of the tourism industry, and especially for regional destinations. They most certainly have an ongoing partner in the graduate tourism program now with myself. We've already organised for a team of my students to go on site and collect further data from visitors on site, now that we're able to welcome people back to our state's tourism attractions. So we're really looking forward to collecting more data and finding out about how Live Penguin TV as well has perhaps had an impact on other small operators within the region, and seeing if that visitation to the Penguin Parade is then translating into visitors staying longer and visiting other places within the region as well.
And I assume the park is now opened back up again. Are they noticing any differences in visitation numbers?
They've been able to reopen. There are still caps on numbers, I believe, and we haven't been able to welcome back our international market to Australia yet. And Phillip Island Nature Parks pre-COVID did have a very strong international market, but we've definitely seen a strong domestic tourism and intrastate tourism in terms of visitation, especially day trippers from Melbourne. But it will be great to be able to see people extending those day trips into extended stays within the region.
Fantastic. Look, I'd love to thank all our panel members for being here today. An hour has gone way too quickly, and I do hope that sharing their knowledge has been inspiring and thought-provoking for everyone across APEC. So I'd like to once again thank Carly, Fabie, Madelene, and for Serena's video as well. Thank you, panels.